Ever since I've made this channel, I've been asking myself, what makes Onimai so unique? Now, I know a story about a grown man turning into a girl sounds weird, and trust me it is, but this anime is something special. There's more to it that meets the eye, as silly as that sounds, but as somebody who's watched the anime numerous times, and I've read every single chapter of the manga, I think I've come to a fair conclusion on why this anime is so special. Now, before this video starts, let me clarify some things. What is Onimai exactly? Now, if you've already clicked on this video, I assume you already know what that anime is, but if you haven't, then I'll give you a quick synopsis. 20-year-old guy turns into a middle school girl and has to deal with the girl things, making friends, and dirty thoughts. Trust me, I made this review series to show you that this anime is not as weird as you think. How this review series will work is that I will go over each episode, give my opinions, and point out anything that is important or differentiates from the manga. When comparing the manga and the anime, I will only be looking at chapters featured in the anime. So yes, unfortunately, things like Mahiro hitting her head and losing her memory won't be featured. Without further ado, let's begin the episode.
Onimai.
The episode starts with Mahiro Oyama, our main protagonist. Mahiro is a 20-year-old guy who does nothing but play games and reads questionable manga. If you're looking for the definition of a NEET, here it is. He's still the most relatable character in the show. Anywho, he wakes up one day to find out that he's feeling a little off, from his head feeling heavier to his hands being smaller. He eventually finds out that he's been transformed into a girl. How surprising, I wouldn't have guessed either. As he's trying to get a hold of himself, he decides to check his suspicions, just in case.
Oni-chan, ohayo!
Here we get introduced to Mihari, my favorite character. Mihari Oyama is Mahiro's younger evil genius sister. She's incredibly athletic, hardworking, and very, very smart. She works as a scientist at a research lab, which she conducts tons of rather questionable experiments. She is the one responsible for turning Mahiro into a girl after drugging his drink. Why, you ask? Because it's for a research project she's working on. She says that he'll eventually turn back into a boy, so it's all good.
Tabun.
Mihari suggests that he can take advantage of this new life and start taking care of himself. Mahiro says screw that and decides to use his new female body for more conventional purposes. Before we go any further into the episode, I want to talk about what we know so far. We know that Mahiro was transformed into a girl for a project that Mihari is working on. We don't know any specifics past that, but we do know that the effects aren't permanent, and he will turn back into a boy soon. Keep this in mind as it is important. Also, I'd like to briefly mention the intro. I know it may be pointless to mention something like this, but trust me, it's an absolute banger. It's flashy, unique, and unexpectedly action-packed for an anime like this. I can't play it or else YouTube will send Hitman to my house, but I recommend you give it a listen on your own time. Back to Mahiro, and we get to see his elite pro gamer skills. Although, just like every gamer, his biggest weakness is daily necessities. The boss is about to spawn, but he needs to use the bathroom badly, so he does the most logical thing and pees in a bottle. Just kidding, he ends up just going to the bathroom. Never pee in bottles, kids. Trust me, I've tried. Next, we get to see Mihari giving Mahiro a checkup, which is pretty cute. Mihiro's gamer mindset hasn't showered in 5 days, so Mihari forces him to take a shower, which is honestly relatable. Although there's one problem. He isn't quite used to his body yet, and now he's getting a full view of what it looks like, which leads to some circumstances.
Hey, yo, the pizza here!
After that, Mahiro puts on the clothes that Mihari bring him, which, well, I think Mihari explains it best here. She also tells Mahiro that she has renovated his entire wardrobe to fit his new appearance, since male clothes wouldn't fit him anymore, and because she knew he'd eventually just go back to wearing the same old clothes. But Mihari also establishes that he'd start taking better care of himself from now on, from waking up early, brushing his teeth, eating breakfast, and having a well-balanced routine. I like this scene, since it shows us Mihari's commitment towards shaping her brother's decrepit ways into something healthier. It also tells us how this experiment isn't just for a science project, but for a way to change his brother's life for the better. She truly is the best character. Even Mahiro sees this. When he looks in the mirror, he realizes the opportunities he has with this new body of his, and the potential it has to revoke his old, sad, and lonely life and turn it into something he's happy about. I'll touch back on this moment later in another scene. For now, we get to see Mahiro get some new drip. Drip? What? Who says drip?
気分を萎えさせようと昔間違えて買った BL ゲームで遊んでみたら
Need to hang up that computer.
After getting an idea from one of Mihiro's totally non-questionable mangas, Mihari decides the best thing to do for him is to touch grass. The greatest weakness for a lot of people. Mihari's idea is to get Mahiro to go outside and get him away from all the BL and other things. Which, well, is a great idea actually, but I'm more surprised by the fact that this guy stayed indoors for 2 years. But besides that, Mihari promises that she'll stay by his side, and this is where we get the most important scene of the episode. While Mahiro is having trouble catching up with Mihari, he has a self-reflection moment. He goes on about how great his sister is compared to him. She's astoundingly athletic, incredibly smart, and much more successful than he ever was. The stares from people who expected more from an older brother of such a compelling sister doused poor Mahiro in shame and embarrassment, thus turning him into the lonely introverted person that he is today. But ever since his transformation into a girl, he's felt more happier and relaxed. Ever since Mihari showed him how valuable his cuteness was and the potential it has, maybe this new path as a girl isn't so bad, and he could be an opportunity for Mahiro to change his depressing life and make it into something special. This scene is amazing. Not only does it show character development from Mahiro, but it shows us how Mahiro became an introvert in the first place, which was from the other shame he felt when people compared him to his hardworking little sister. Now, however, with this transformation into becoming a girl, he's starting to realize that he enjoys his life and that there's more to living than just sitting behind a computer all day. And remembering that scene from earlier, Mihari made him realize that with his new body, he can have the opportunity to reshape his sad and lonely life into something special. Am I looking too deep into this? Yes, I am. Is this just a setup for a joke that Mahiro isn't wearing a bra? Yes, it is, but nonetheless, it's still crucial since it's the first step of Mahiro's character development. Anyways, back to the episode. As stated earlier, Mahiro isn't wearing a bra, which explains why he stopped running. He refused to wear it since wearing one would just be entering the point of no return. Refusing to go back home now, Mihari comes up with the most reasonable solution: bra shopping. Mahiro is then forced to get a bra, which, well, goes as well as you can expect.
はい測りますからね無理なら前でホップしてからぐるっと
Are you winning, son?
So, I was editing this video, and I forgot to include this little detail at the end. So, the last shot of the episode, we get a zoom in on a document titled Oni-chan Transformation Plan. This shows us that the science project Mihari mentioned previously is purely about changing Mihiro's life completely. Which is probably the most elaborate way to make somebody go outside, but hey, who am I to judge? Oh, you thought the review was over? I've still got to talk about the outro. Now, just like the intro, this song is a banger too, but to be honest, I think it is better than the intro. The colors are very vibrant, charming, and I like the display of warm colors it has. It goes with the aesthetic of the song. One more thing I like to point out is how the art is similar to the manga. Fairly small detail, but I appreciate it. Just like the intro, I highly recommend you listen to this full version of the outro as well. It hits even harder than the intro, and it's also on YouTube.
Onimai.
With that being said, I'd rate this episode a solid 10 out of 10. It's a great way to introduce us to our main dynamic duo, as well as setting the premise of the story, which is Mahiro trying to get the hang of being a sister. It is funny jokes, a banger intro and outro, and gives us some insight on Mahiro and Mihari. Also, it has Mihari, which is already a 10 out of 10. Nonetheless, this has been the Onimai review. If you have any questions or thoughts, Be sure to tell me in the comments. Thank you all for watching, and I wish you all an amazing day or night.
My ears burn!